A paralyzed man just moved a cursor using only his thoughts. No hands, no voice, just a chip and a signal from his brain. This is Neuralink's first human trial, and it just went public. The data coming out of that brain is rewriting human potential. Neuralink isn't building a medical device. It's building the first hardware upgrade for the human species. This is the last upgrade, and it has already begun. Hit subscribe because this is only the beginning of what we're about to uncover. To understand what Neuralink is doing, we first need to understand what the brain actually is. Not the poetic version, the engineering version. Your brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Each one is a tiny biological processor firing electrical signals across microscopic gaps called synapses. These signals travel at speeds of up to 120 meters per second, faster than a Formula One car on a straight. Every thought you've ever had, every memory, every movement, all of it just patterns of electrical signals cascading through neural networks. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The motor cortex, a strip of brain tissue just behind your forehead, is specifically responsible for generating movement signals. When you decide to move your hand, your motor cortex fires a precise pattern of signals down your spinal cord, and your muscles respond. But in patients with paralysis, that pathway is broken. The brain still fires, the signals still generate, they just never reach their destination. The brain is shouting, the body simply can't hear it anymore. This is the fundamental problem Neuralink set out to solve, not by repairing biology, but by building a completely new one. Instead of repairing biology, they decided to route the brain's signals directly into a computer, bypassing the body entirely. That idea, reading raw neural signals and translating them into digital commands, is called a brain-computer interface, or BCI. BCIs have existed in research labs since the 1970s, but they were bulky, unreliable, and required massive external hardware to function. What Neuralink changed was scale. They miniaturized the entire system, electrodes, processor, wireless transmitter, into something that fits inside your skull. 1,024 electrodes, each one thinner than a human hair, placed with surgical precision by a robot because no human hand is steady enough. The result is a device that can listen to individual neurons firing in real time and translate that activity into digital signals a computer can understand. The brain hasn't changed, the neurons haven't changed, but now, for the first time in human history, we have a direct line into the mind, and Neuralink is just getting started. So what exactly did Neuralink build? Because the device itself is unlike anything that has ever been implanted in a human brain before. It's called the N1 implant, a device roughly the size of a large coin designed to sit flush inside the skull, completely invisible from the outside. Inside that device is a custom chip called N1, processing neural data at a speed and precision no previous BCI has ever achieved. Connected to that chip are 64 ultra-thin threads, each carrying 16 electrodes. That's 1,024 individual listening points inside the brain. Each electrode is thinner than a human hair, so thin that inserting them manually would be impossible, which is why Neuralink built a robot to do it. That robot, called R1, places each thread with micron-level precision, avoiding blood vessels, avoiding damage, threading electrodes into exact neural locations in minutes. Once implanted, the N1 chip reads the electrical activity of nearby neurons continuously, sampling it over 20,000 times per second. That raw neural data is then processed, compressed, and transmitted wirelessly through your skull to an external device. No wires, no ports, nothing breaking the skin. The battery charges wirelessly too, just like your phone. You simply hold a charger near your head and the implant charges through the skull. The entire system is self-contained, waterproof, and designed to last for years inside the human body without maintenance or replacement. What makes the N1 truly revolutionary isn't just its size, it's what it can hear. Individual neurons, single spikes, the most fundamental unit of human thought. No device in human history has ever listened this closely to the brain, until now. In January 2024, Neuralink implanted their device into a human brain for the very first time. The patient's name was Noland Arbaugh. Noland was 29 years old. 8 years earlier, a diving accident had left him paralyzed from the shoulders down, unable to move his arms or legs. For 8 years, basic tasks most people never think about, browsing the internet, playing games, communicating freely, were completely out of reach. Then, Neuralink changed everything. Within weeks of the implant, Noland was controlling a computer cursor purely with his thoughts. He described it as the cursor just moving wherever he wanted it to go. No lag, no frustration, just thought and action. Within months, he was playing chess online, browsing the internet for hours, doing things he hadn't been able to do since his accident. But what the headlines missed was the data, because what Neuralink's engineers were seeing on their end was something extraordinary. Noland's motor cortex was firing signals with a clarity and consistency that surpassed what researchers had seen in any previous BCI study. The N1 implant was decoding his intended movements in real time, translating neural intention into digital action faster than any system before it. There was a complication. Several months in, some electrode threads retracted slightly from the brain tissue, reducing the signal quality temporarily. Neuralink's team responded by updating the algorithms, teaching the system to extract better signals from fewer electrodes. And it worked. Noland didn't just survive the world's first Neuralink implant, he thrived. And in doing so, he proved that the human brain and a computer chip can work together seamlessly. Noland Arbaugh was just the beginning. In 2025, Neuralink quietly expanded, launching what can only be described as the world's first brain-computer interface public beta. More patients, more data, more neural signals being decoded in real time across different ages, different injury types, different areas of the brain. And what the data revealed was staggering. Patients were achieving cursor control speeds that matched and in some cases exceeded the average able-bodied mouse user. Think about that for a moment. A person with no physical movement outperforming someone with full use of their hands, using nothing but thought. But cursor control was just the surface. Neuralink's engineers began identifying something far more significant buried deep inside the neural data streams. They discovered that the N1 implant could detect not just movement intentions, but the subtle preparatory signals the brain generates a fraction of a second before any conscious decision is made. In other words, Neuralink's chip was reading the brain's intentions before the person was even fully aware they had made a decision. The implications of that are almost incomprehensible. Beyond movement, early data suggested the system could distinguish between different types of cognitive states, focus, fatigue, emotional arousal, just from raw neural patterns. This means the device isn't just reading motor signals anymore. It's beginning to map the deeper landscape of human cognition itself. Neuralink also began testing speech decoding, training algorithms to reconstruct intended words from neural patterns alone. No mouth movement required. Early results showed the system could decode simple intended words with remarkable accuracy, opening the door for patients who have lost the ability to speak entirely. Every session, every patient, Every neural signal recorded, feeding back into Neuralink's AI, making the system smarter, faster, and more precise with every passing day. This is no longer a medical trial. This is a learning system, and the more humans that connect, the smarter it becomes. Here's where the conversation gets bigger. Because Neuralink was never just about helping paralyzed patients. That was always the first step, not the destination. Elon Musk has been explicit about the end goal, a fully bidirectional brain-computer interface, one that doesn't just read the brain, but writes to it, sending information back in. That means memories could theoretically be stored externally, skills could be uploaded, sensory experiences could be transmitted directly into the nervous system. Imagine downloading a language, or experiencing a friend's memory as if it were your own, or having your cognitive speed augmented the way a GPU accelerates a computer. But with that vision comes a weight of questions that humanity has never had to answer before, and they demand serious, honest examination. Who owns your neural data? If a company can read your brain signals, they can read your intentions, your emotions, your private thoughts. What legal protections exist for that? Right now, almost none. Neural data sits in a legal gray zone in most countries. There is no global framework protecting what your brain produces as private information. Then there's the question of access. If cognitive enhancement becomes real, who gets it? The wealthy few or everyone? Because a two-tiered humanity is not a science fiction scenario anymore. History tells us that transformative technologies almost always widen inequality before they democratize. The internet did it. Smartphones did it. BCIs will too, unless we act deliberately. There's also the question of security. A neural implant connected wirelessly to external systems is, by definition, a hackable device. What happens when someone tries to breach it? Neural hacking isn't just a cybersecurity problem, it's an existential one, because the target isn't your data, it's your mind, your identity, your sense of self. And then there's the deepest question of all. If a machine can read, write, and augment your mind, at what point does the human inside the hardware stop being purely human? These aren't hypothetical questions for future generations to answer. Neuralink is already implanting humans. The timeline has collapsed. The decisions need to be made now. To Neuralink's credit, they have published safety data, maintained FDA oversight, and been more transparent than most neurotechnology companies operating today. But transparency from one company isn't enough. What the world needs now is a global conversation. Scientists, ethicists, governments, and ordinary people about where this technology is allowed to go. Because the brain is the last truly private space a human being has, and once we open that door, we need to be absolutely certain about who holds the key. None of this means Neuralink should stop. The good it is doing for paralyzed patients right now is undeniable, real, and profound. But progress without guardrails is just speed without direction. The synthetic biology revolution we talked about last video proved that biology is becoming programmable. Neuralink is now proving something even more profound, that the mind itself is becoming an interface, and interfaces can be upgraded, controlled, and yes, misused. The question is whether we're wise enough to know the difference. We started this video with a paralyzed man moving a cursor using only his thoughts, but that's not really the story. The story is what comes next. We are living through the moment where the boundary between biology and technology permanently dissolves. And unlike most revolutions, this one is happening inside us. Neuralink is not the finish line. It is the starting gun. And every patient connected, every neural signal decoded, every algorithm trained brings us one step closer to a future we can barely imagine. Whether that future excites you or unsettles you, one thing is certain. Understanding it is no longer optional, because ready or not, the last upgrade has already begun. If the line between human and machine just got a little blurrier for you, hit like, share this with someone, and subscribe to SynthCosmos. We cover the science reshaping our world as we know it every single week. We'll see you in the next one.